Okay, so inside the back box, the CPU control lights run at 6-volt DC. So to get DC, the transformer takes the 120 volts from the wall, converts it down to only about 6 volts AC, and then it goes through a fuse and then to this bridge right here, this one on the left. So we're going to take this module out. I've got it already unbolted and set it right here. And what happens is with time, these little bridge rectifiers, if we remove the screws that hold the bridge to the heat sinks, there's 3 of them, 1, 2, 3. Take those screws out. We can gain access to the bottom of this, which is where the bridge rectifiers can be seen. Otherwise you can't see them, because what happens is that the bridges bolt against this metal frame, and the metal frame acts as a heat sink. And you can see here's the 3 bridges, and then here's the heat sink, and then this metal frame's a big heat sink. So you've got this one here for the CPU control lights, that one for the plus 12 plus 5 volts, and this one for the 43 volts coil voltage. So this is the one that we want to replace, and we're going to replace it with a newer 35 amp style. You can see the difference in size between these. These new ones are much bigger, much more robust. With time, this just get weak. So using my solder depullet, I've desoldered the 4 leads here. And you can flip this guy over, and then you kind of got to get a screwdriver in here, and you can kind of pry it out. It's not so easy to get out, but it's not impossible either. Get this thing out. Okay, so now I have the guy removed, so now we got nothing on this side. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take this big mama, and we can no longer put it on the bottom, because if the height is different on the new bridge between the old ones, they won't touch the heatsink there. So what we do instead is we mount this guy on top. And in theory, we should probably have a heatsink on top of this one. I don't happen to have one with me. It's not 100% needed, but it's really a good idea to just bolt a heatsink using a number 8 screw through there, and then through here with a heatsink that you can buy at like Radio Shack. When putting this in, a couple things, you'll notice that there's one lead that's offset. So the other 3 are kind of symmetrically in place, and this one that's offset, that's the positive lead. Often it's marked, and this one it doesn't really appear to be, but this one here is the positive. And then if you look here, the one in the upper left hand corner is positive, and there's actually like a plus there, a minus here, and then AC, AC. So the way this is going to mount is when we get this up here, it's going to go like this. It's going to mount like this, but from the top side. So you see how the offset one goes to the positive lead there in the positive hole of the boards. So here's the mounting of the new bridge. Notice that it's sitting on top of this resistor, just the edge of it, and it is not touching these fuse clips. If the metal case is touching the fuse clips, you're going to run into all kinds of problems. Now I haven't soldered it in place, so I can kind of pull it out and show you. You kind of got to bend the legs to make it fit. See how the legs are kind of bent in to get that shape? That's what you got to do to make it fit. Now don't put this in wrong, or you're going to see all kinds of sparks and other issues. Make sure again that one offset leg goes to the plus hole. I've got the bridge soldered in. Now I leave the legs long enough so that I can get my soldering iron in like this and solder it from the top side. Because if you look on the back side, there's really not any traces going on the back side. Obviously I got to cut these leads off, but so everything's, the connectivity's all on the top side of the board, so you really got to get your soldering iron under there and in like this and solder the legs from the top. Now when we remount it, you want to make sure that the legs are trimmed shorter than the height of these old bridges, because you don't want it to short against the metal frame. Okay, now we're still going to use this heatsink. You still need it for the other 2 bridges. Put this thing back down, and then obviously when we bolt it in place, we're only going to use these 2 screws here to hold the board to the heatsink to the metal frame. While you have this off, it's not a bad idea to do a couple ground modifications. You can see how these pins like to get burned up on this side of these 2 connectors. So what I do over here is all the grounds, I tied the 2 grounds together, then I tie the ground on the back side to the front side of the board just to make sure that the plated through holes don't get all scorched. It just adds a little bit of reliability to these pair of connectors on the pins that like to burn. The board mounted in place. I just want to double check that my leads on the bridge aren't touching the metal frame here. But looks good, everything looks okay, so I'm ready to put the transformer assembly back in the game. Okay, I have the transformer assembly in and bolted in place. Have the game turned on. Now the thing is I will put it in, you can see how much brighter the lamps are. Let me put it in lamp test. There's a lamp test. So now I can actually see them. I've got a couple bulbs out, but other than that, I can actually see the lights now. They're like nice and bright. I could barely see them, especially the ones up here I could barely see. So that's how you fix dim lights on your Dash 17/Dash 35 games, that the lights just aren't bright enough to see the insert lights.